Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for stopping by. I'm AJ with the Abundance channel, and we're going to be covering the single most important thing for your health, other than obviously breathing, drinking water, and eating, and that is your mitochondria. Without it, you would die almost instantly. Uh, and it's a single most important cause of aging. As your mitochondria ages, so do you. It's a precursor to all the things that happen to you, including inflammation, diabetes, um, dementia, uh, high blood sugar, A1C, all the things that are associated with aging are, when you look at them, they are triggered simply by your mitochondria's dysfunction. As you get older, it's the single most important thing to take care of. Nothing else matters above this. You shouldn't be taking a plethora of peptides if you're not first supporting your mitochondria. You shouldn't be taking growth hormone or testosterone therapy if you're not taking something for your mitochondria. Period. You're wasting your money. All you're doing is pumping signals into cells that aren't functioning properly, and you're wasting it. That's why people don't get tremendous benefits from TRT or hormone therapy replacement. It's because the cells can't use it because they're dysfunctional. And you have extra garbage that isn't cleaned up because of the mitochondria not doing its job. So I'd like to cover a short video in this, and I'll make comments throughout it that I made today to quickly clarify the point I'm trying to make. In other words, don't go out and take something for your high blood pressure. Don't go out and you want to do that if it isn't clarified or fixed up or taken care of, or I guess covered up by the medication you're taking. If you take these peptides, for example, and your mitochondria is functioning properly, then the medication you're taking to cover up the symptoms will probably work too well. So you'll have to be careful. And I'm making this assessment simply because it's just logical. When the cell signaling in your is working properly due to enough energy, anything they're giving you exogenous, something from the outside, is going to be amplified compared to how it works when your body isn't working properly. So the prescriptions you're taking will probably either have to be eliminated or cut in half or cut to a third. But I have to say this, I'm not a physician. I've been studying this since the 1980s. I'm actually a senior citizen. I started studying this stuff I started in 1984 when I was around 18 years old. And actually, I was actually not when I was 18. It was when I was 21. I started studying this stuff in 1984. So that tells you how old I am. But what I like to say is that this stuff has been around quite a while. This mitochondria information, and the SS31, if I remember, it's probably been 15 years since the mitochondrial peptide SS31 has been introduced. And it's been known for a very long time that methylene blue helps your mitochondria, increases the amount of oxygen in your blood also, and has a antibiotic effects. So here's some very interesting information. I'd like to cover it quickly in this brief video, and we'll talk about those things as the video goes along.
Do for your energy, your youth, and, well, your overall vitality. We're going microscopic to understand a concept that has huge implications: supporting your mitochondria.
Okay, that's a massive claim, right? But stick with me. We're not just going to talk about why this is so critical. We're going to break down a very specific 4-part strategy, a stack of compounds designed to supercharge your cellular health from the inside out.
So before we can even think about the solution, we have to really understand the problem. And this is a problem that starts deep inside almost every single cell in your body. Yeah, we've got to go microscopic to see the big picture here. I want you to think of your body as this massive, bustling city. Well, your mitochondria, they're the countless little power plants keeping all the lights on.
What I like to also say, they're just not the power plants. that is only a small facet of what they do. Basically, they also make hormones. They make the hormone pregnenolone, and that is the master hormone for which all other hormones are made. So if your mitochondria are not working properly, obviously if they're not working, you die. But if they're being slowed down and dysfunctional, and say they're only working at 50% what they used to when you were in your youth, then you probably only have 50% of the rest of the hormones floating around in your body. For some reason, when you look at, you study this in medicine, they don't talk about pregnenolone being made in your mitochondria. They just skip over it. They say, oh, pregnenolone is turned into DHEA. And then where did it come from? Because then acquiring mind, a doctor who's extremely intelligent would think, well, why don't we look at the mitochondria? Maybe that would solve all these hormone problems. We wouldn't need TRT or hormone replacement therapy, or you probably wouldn't even need thyroid medication. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to solve the problem. They want to treat the symptoms. There's no money in your body working properly. There's no prescriptions. They can't give you a prescription that will. Basically, they are just saying if you have a thyroid problem, we'll give you thyroid hormones. Why is your thyroid not functioning? Mitochondria. Unless it's genetic that if you have some sort of predisposed genetic problem with your thyroid that isn't mitochondrial, then and you could have, like my grandmother had, she didn't produce any, thyroid hormones, and she was very ill most of her life. So, there are issues like that. But that's what doctors should be for. Doctors shouldn't be for common everyday things like your thyroid slowing down because your mitochondria isn't working. I mean, you're getting old. Same thing. Now let's move on.
Turn out a molecule called ATP, and that's the literal energy currency for everything you do, from thinking and moving to healing and even just growing. When these little power plants start to fail, the entire city, it just slows to a crawl.
This slide really shows the two sides of the coin. It's a switch, really. When your mitochondria are healthy, humming along, you feel it. You have optimal energy, you feel youthful, things just work. But when they start to glitch, and this happens naturally as we age or face stressors, the effects are immediate. And you feel those too. Fatigue, chronic inflammation, and a direct acceleration of the aging process.
So in essence, everything that's happening to you bad, unless it's caused by you ingesting toxins, and a lot of times the toxins affect your mitochondria. That's why they don't want to tell you, well, the poisons inside of vaccinations, for example, some of them affect your mitochondria. And you can't tell at first that you're not feeling right, but eventually you start going, I just don't have enough energy to do anything. I don't understand what happened. After the shot, it must have been because I had the flu and it did damage. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Toxins, whether they're introduced through immunizations or ingested through your food, which happens a lot, or just from the atmosphere, eventually will build up in your body especially if you don't have enough energy to eliminate them. So let's continue.
So, how do we fix these glitching power plants? Well, it's not as simple as just flipping a switch back on. It takes a targeted intervention, almost like a cellular special ops team. So we're going to explore a 4-part rescue mission, a dream team of compounds that are designed to work in perfect harmony.
Okay, let's meet the team. First up, we have SS31. We'll call it the stabilizer. Its job is to shore up the very structure of the mitochondria. Next is humanin, the bodyguard, protecting the cell from self-destruct signals. Then you've got MOTS-C, the builder, which actually promotes the growth of new mitochondria. And finally, methylene blue, the electrician, which is an expert at fixing broken circuits in that energy production line.
Now here's the thing. While each of these
Now, since all these compounds do work quite well, but it pales in comparison how they work in synergy when they work together, when you're using them in a way that there's no dysfunction throughout the whole Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle, whatever. It depends on what type of energy you're using at the time. The effects are stupendous, and everyone should understand that. And it's not just me saying it; it's science also.
Compounds is pretty powerful on its own. Their true strength, the real magic, is in their synergy. It's all about how they work together to create an effect that is just so much greater than the sum of their parts.
And these analogies really make the science click, you know? SS31, it literally slips into that inner mitochondrial membrane to fix it, like tightening the screws on a wobbly shelf. Humanin acts as a bodyguard at the door, stopping the cell from initiating self-destruct. MOTC is fascinating. It's what we call an exercise mimetic, basically telling your body to burn fat like you just had a great workout. And then methylene blue. It's like a redox wizard, creating a genius bypass for broken links in the energy chain so that power always gets through.
So the big takeaway here is this. You're not just plugging one hole in a leaky boat. You're repairing the structure, you're blocking demolition signals, you're building brand new factories, and you're rewiring the whole electrical grid all at once.
And that is a simple synopsis so far of what those things do. It's much more complicated than that because the mitochondria are extremely, extremely complicated. They keep us alive. They stimulate our immune system. They make the master hormone for our whole body. They manage calcium so that our cell membranes work properly. They do many, many things, including when they're working properly. You're using aerobic energy methods. You're using oxygen rather than burning sugar and fats without oxygen, which is anaerobic, and high consumption of sugar, high blood sugar, and things like that. That is conducive for cancer. So if your mitochondria is working properly, there's a lot less chance of you ever getting a cancer. So that's something to think about also. So let's continue.
This multi-pronged attack, it leads to a complete rescue of your cell's ability to produce energy.
And listen, this isn't just some cool theory. The power of this synergy is backed by hard science. I mean, to put this in perspective, in models looking at stroke damage, which is a massive and devastating event for your mitochondria, this exact combination was able to slash the resulting cellular damage by a staggering 50%. That just shows you the incredible real-world potential of this kind of comprehensive approach.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get practical. How would someone actually put this into practice? This next part breaks down a sample protocol. Here's a look at what a potential daily plan could be. You'd start with methylene blue in the morning, then SS31, which is often done as a subcutaneous injection, and MOTSC taken after a meal. Humanine, which is usually a nasal spray, is taken just a few nights a week. You know, it's also a really smart move to get some baseline blood work done, checking for markers of cellular stress, just to see what your starting point is.
Now this next part is absolutely critical. Seriously. Safety first. This means sourcing from reputable vendors and always testing for purity. It means making sure your methylene blue is USP grade. That's the stuff that's safe for human use, not the industrial dye. And most importantly, and I really can't stress this enough, methylene blue must never be taken if you're on SSRIs. The risk of a serious condition called serotonin syndrome is just too high. And as always, listen to your body. If you feel edgy or anything feels off, you tweak the protocol.
So we end with the question that really gets to the heart of why any of this matters. Could a targeted approach to your mitochondrial health be the key to turning the tables on cellular aging? The science that's emerging is incredibly clear. When you support your body's fundamental power plants, the result is simple but profound. Energy up, brain fog down. And that is a victory definitely worth exploring.
So there you have it. I'd also like to say that a lot of the mitochondrial dysfunctions, I'd say that 90% of the diseases that are treated today are from that. There are some genetic diseases or diseases from, I'm talking about aging type diseases, not catching malaria or infectious diseases. There's also genetic diseases, but a lot of them are also mitigated by mitochondrial health. And epigenetic things that will transpire in your body, things that automatically click in when your mitochondrial energy is low. So there's many things that can be mitigated and helped through this. I also like to say that I am not a physician. I'm just a researcher. Physicians generally will not know about this, and if they do, they have, say, $500,000 worth of education invested in the pharmaceutical companies and their methods, which is to treat symptoms. It's just blatantly obvious that when you go into a doctor's office, they look at you have high blood pressure and they give you something to lower your blood pressure, rather than saying, "Hey, what's causing her kidneys to put out this hormone to increase the blood pressure? What's causing the sodium to potassium imbalance? What's causing the calcium to go askew?" Instead of saying that, they just give you something to treat your blood pressure. Also, inflammation. What's causing the inflammation? And a lot of times that's zombie or senescent cells, is another word for them. And those senescent cells produce cytokines and other type of inflammatory compounds when they're dysfunctional. A lot of times they're dysfunctional because the mitochondria is dysfunctional. And when you revive the mitochondria, it will eliminate the zombie cells that can't be fixed and increase your abilities for your cells to divide and make new cells. So the chronic inflammation goes away. So this is something to think about. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing this stuff. And I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just saying this is the research out there. And it shows that you can live much longer and healthier for a much extended period of time. And what's happening now in society is people, for the first 25 years, you don't make any money because you're educating yourself. And for your last 25 years, you don't make any money because you're sick. So you live 85 years, and 35 to 40 years of it is the only time you're productive. Now, if you extended your productive lifespan to say you were healthy up to you were 100 rather than 60, you add 40 more years of functionality to your life. You double your functional life. You double the time in which you can actually contribute and accumulate wealth and help your family. So what's happening in society now is, one, they're charging a bunch of money to give you pills to cover up your symptoms that do not make you healthier. As a matter of fact, they actually accelerate your death. They're basically managing your death. They're slowly, it's sickness management, decline management, and they manage to take a lot out of your pocketbook on the way down so that you die poor. And when you're at your peak mentally, let's say you know the most and you can help society the most, is when you start getting sick. It's a cruel joke. And they're helping participate in this. And a lot of doctors are unknowingly doing this. They're so caught up in the system and so worried about getting paid by the insurance companies and they're taking the bribes from their pharmaceutical companies and getting trips to the Bahamas and all that kind of stuff and a little money on the side, that they just, it's hopeless. They don't even teach them. From what I've seen, I've studied a lot of medical, a lot of stuff for medical school, because I was going to be a doctor at one point. And it basically says, if you go in there and you try to find out how DHEA is made, they don't say, hey, it's made in the mitochondria first, and then it goes out of the mitochondria and it goes through all these enzymes and it's converted into DHEA. They say it just magically appears. The pregnenolone just magically appears from nowhere, from cholesterol. It appears from cholesterol, but where? So a smart doctor would go, hey, since the hormones are low, and they all come from mitochondria, what are we going to do about that? I know. Hormone therapy will just add hormones to their body, not make their body create more hormones. When you add more hormones to your body, it's like adding extra insulin. You become resistant to those things. You become insulin resistant, hormone resistant, and basically over time, you accelerate your aging by taking extra hormones. It's been proven that if you take extra growth hormone, you don't live longer, you live shorter. You feel healthy at the time, but it's also limiting the amount of times your cells can divide, and has a knock-on effect to cancer and things like that. Without the mitochondria being healthy, those hormone therapies do not extend life. Adding estrogen to a woman's body whose mitochondria is dysfunctioning causes cancer. Mitochondria is the key, folks. Mitochondria is the key. And that's all I have to say. Everyone have a good afternoon and evening. Enjoy your meals, relax. Just remember mitochondria is the key. And subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll greatly appreciate it because I want to get this information out to more people. It's just not the use of peptides. It's what you have to concentrate on first, which is mitochondria. Diet's important. It is. You have to eat food, you have to drink water, and you have to breathe oxygen. Otherwise, you die. But other than that, mitochondria is it. That's all for tonight, folks. Thank you. Have a good evening.